Hey everybody, Joy here. It's Tuesday and I'm cleaning up my ironing board with my roly-poly. If you want to get some really good roly-polies like this, I've gotten these for years. I buy them in cases of 12 maybe, and it comes with a handle and the rollers. They're so much better than the ones you get at the store. And they come from Cleaners, Laundry Supply, or Cleaner Supply, or something like that. I'll put a link in the box below. And speaking of links, you know I have an Amazon store. I don't have a million things in it, but I have the things that I use here, and I have them in my store so you can find them. Yesterday, when I made cooking my applesauce in the Forever Pot, I used the apple peeler thingy. And be sure now that your apples are really hard when you use that thing, because if they're soft, it does not work good at all. So I put that in my store, probably under miscellaneous. So I don't have a whole lot of things in my store, but I do have some. I have books, and I have quilting products, sewing products, miscellaneous products. I don't even know what all, patterns, all different things in there. But here's the thing. I got this notice from Amazon, and I've probably gotten it 100 times, because anytime I get something, I go delete, 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 delete. I'm supposed to tell you, and I have told you, but I'm supposed to have it in great big bold letters flashing somewhere. I'll put it down. Anytime I post my Amazon store link now, I will put this. But I'm supposed to tell everybody that as an Amazon influencer, and I didn't even know I was an influencer, but according to them, I'm an Amazon influencer, and I might make a small commission if you buy items from my store. They say it a little bit differently. I'll have to look it up and make sure I type it exactly right. But if you buy something from my store, I'll get some amount of commission. From what I've done so far, I think my biggest amount of a check I've ever had is $12. And usually it's like less than $1. So I don't want you to think that I'm illegally making tons of money from Amazon, and I didn't tell anybody that I was. I would say I'm an affiliate. They call it influencer, but so be sure everybody knows that. And listen, if you decide to buy a new sewing machine or a new house or a new whatever, go to my Amazon store and buy it. It won't cost you a penny more, but maybe I'll get more than $12 commission. See what I mean? If you go to my Amazon store, which is amazon.com/shop/Joy Bernhardt, and you go there to do your shopping, whatever you buy, it won't matter if it's in my store or not. Whatever you buy, I will get a little bit of a commission for. So how fun would that be? Oh gosh, somebody needs to buy an airplane or a yacht or something like that. I'm kidding, but I'm not really. That really is true. So these are called Evercare, and they're from the Cleaner Supply. I think it's called cleanersupply.com. And they work much, much better than the ones that you get at the store. So just I have them all over the house. I opened my closet and I tried to get one, and it stuck to the other one, and they come out together. I know. One of those fun things. All right, let's make some bindings. I'm going to bind the crow this morning. Now, I was filming this yesterday, and I was going to show you how I got to this point, but my friend Philly wanted to talk. So I said, call me. So we ended up talking for an hour and a half. And this just got put on hold. So what I do is I cut my strips 2.5 inches. And I remember now the first thing I did when I started talking to Philly was I cut them 2 inches. And I came over here and I got them all ready, and I got them, then I looked up and I thought, boy, those sure are skinny. So cut them 2.5. Now this is a little quilt, so I only need 4 of them. So I bring them over here, and they're flat then. They're just flat. There's no fold in them. And I lay them out, okay? So pretend like they're not folded. I lay them out on my ironing board. Not sewn together yet. They're just 40 inches long or 41, however long they come. Then I spray them very good with this Quilter's Starch Savvy from, who is this? This actually is not June Taylor. It's actually Mary Ellen's starch. See? So this is Mary Ellen Makes Ironing Fun. And it's best press scent free, which is the #1 reason I use it. But I had this bottle, fragrance and flake free, from June Taylor. So these are both really good, although this is in this bottle, okay? I want to make that clear. I'll put it in my store if it's not already there. So I lay these out flat, and I squirt, 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 and they're just soaking wet. And then I let them just soak for 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, until they're damp and not soaking. Then I come over here, and that's when I take the flat strips, now they're flat, and they're still damp, and then I fold them over, and then I iron them with a very hot iron, like this, until they're much, much drier. They may not be totally dry, but they're a whole lot more dry than they were, and they're very well pressed. So now they're pressed, and they're starched. So then I just hang them someplace, or I just let them sit here until they dry some more, okay? Now is when I'm going to sew them together. Why? Well, if you're doing a great big quilt, a queen size quilt, a lap size quilt, and you sew these together first, you're going to have this long, 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 long snake in your room. And you're going to be dragging it over your board, dragging and dragging and dragging and dragging. I don't like that. So I started doing it like this and getting all the starch done first, get the pressing done first, then I sew them together. So let me show you how I sew them together. I'm just bringing it over here because it's hard and my chalk will roll on it better. So I pick up an end and I open it. I want it to be right side up, and it should be so your fold is like this, like a mountain. So you want your crease up, pointing up. Then I take another one and I open it up. And I make sure it's right side up, and I know the right side because the crease is on it, and I turn it upside down because I want these two ends to be right sides together. Right sides together. Yeah. Sing that song. Get along. Right sides together. Okay. Then you put them on top of each other. Then you have to draw a line. And I'll show it to you up close in a minute. You have to draw a line. And I'm hoping this little roly chalk will work. You need to be able to see the end. See how I'm moving it a little bit to the inside? That's just so I can draw my corner here. I'm going to move it to the edge in a minute, but right now I just want to draw my mark. I'll show you. I don't want to move the camera because it takes me a long time to do that. So I'm going to mark that. And I'm going to mark this point. Now I'm going to take another ruler. I've got the two corners marked. Now I'm going to mark from corner to corner. Like that. So let me show you up real close. See? You have to be able to see this intersection right here. And you have to come to this point right here. Because you're going to sew, not below it, not above it. This is not a flying geese. This is just a seam to hold these two pieces together. So you're going to sew right there on that line. Let me go do it and I'll be back. So it's sewn together, and here you can see the creases go up on both pieces. And here's what I sewed together. So now I'm going to cut off this extra, this point here, and I'm going to have a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and the rest of this is going in the trash. So here's your triangles. I don't save them. And here's your 1/4 inch seam. So now I'm going to open this up flat. I'm going to iron this 1/4 inch seam flat. I think probably everybody does this part this way. I've watched lots of people. I watch lots of people on every subject and how they do things. Sewing, quilting, jewelry making, electric quilt. Boy, those people at Electric Quilt sure are nice. Okay, so now we're going to fold that over. Make sure it's nice and flat inside. Line it back up because you've been messing with this. And press that down again. Now this is going to start raveling. The more you mess with it, the more it's going to ravel. But that's okay. All of that's going to be sewn into a seam and you won't see it. Okay, so now I have 2. And I'll sew the other 2 on, and then I'll have enough, and then we'll go get it set up at the sewing machine, and I'll show you how I sew it on. Not that it's any big mystery or anything. So once you get all your pieces sewn together, and you have your long, I usually put the quilt over the roller bar on my long arm. You could put it on the floor, you could put it on the table. Crawling around the floor hurts my knees these days. So I like to put the quilt up if I can. All right, I start at the bottom. And I take my little red clips. Now, you don't ever start at the beginning. You leave some of it hanging. Leave about 6 inches hanging. When you get all done, you really need about 8 to 12 inches, depending on the size of your quilt, unsewn, so you can put the end of this piece with the other end of this, and then sew it down. You got to attach this to the other end. So leave some that you're not using. I do it like that. And then I get my clips, which live in here. My little red clover clips, is that what they're called? And I always do this. I don't just go to the sewing machine and start sewing the binding on, because I want to make sure there are 3 seams in here. You just saw me make 1. There's 3 now. And you don't want the seam to wrap around the corner because it will mess up your mitered corner. Okay, so here I am. There's no seam there. So I am going to bend it down like you would. Let me put another clip here. So then you come here and you play like you're sewing it, and you fold this down on the corner like you would if you were putting it on. You try not to step on it. Fold it back up. Of course, it's easier, you know, if you're in the right position. Get another clip and clip the corner. Then you come up this way. You could go around the other way, it doesn't matter. Just go around. But I like my finish to always finish at the bottom. Be sure your clip holds all the layers. Come up here. Sorry about my back, y'all. It's a lot easier if you stand in front of it like this and go like this. Pat! I'm going up, up, up and around. Now here we're going to do it again. We're going to make a mitered corner. Mitered corner. Flip it back around. Make sure there's not a seam allowance under your fingers. No seam allowance. Need to get that pin out of there. 100% of the time the clips will come out of the box upside down. I don't know what it is about it, but it's the truth. Alright, so go, 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 keep on going. Now does my box come out? Yes, look, see, you have to be careful. You have to be sure you're getting all the layers. All the layers, go back there. Let me come over this way, maybe you can see it better. So now I'm just going to come across here, put another clip. Yeah, this is a little easier for me. Come across here, miter your corner, make sure there's no seam there. Oh my goodness, there is a seam. There is a seam right here on this corner. Now what do? Now what I do is I start over and I move this back because I don't want that seam on the corner. I don't know how people do this without checking for that, because almost every time at least one corner gets a seam on it. I'm not kidding. So I'll move all that back. I don't think it'll happen again. Pardon the view, pardon the view. This is where this is and I'm not taking it down. Then pin. I will take this from here to the sewing machine and I will sew this on. After I get the binding exact. See, I'm almost back down to the bottom again. Now on a great big quilt, this takes a whole lot longer. But still, same problem. The seam allowances. Okay, we're going to fold this way. Make a miter. Make sure you're all the way down to the bottom. It's hard to do when you're trying to show somebody in a video, I can tell you that. Let's turn this way for this corner. This way and this way. No seam here. There's no seam there, so that's not a problem. Now here we are at the bottom, and you can see I have a big piece left, and this was just 4 cuts because this is a little quilt. So you can see this long piece left, and you want that. Don't ever measure your quilt to be just exact and come together. Don't ever measure this to just come together here. No, don't do that. So something else I could do. Say I already sewed this, and I didn't do my pre-check, and I was sewing, and I came up here to a seam on the corner. What could I do? What could I do? What I could do, if I know I have enough left, is I can just cut this. Cut it here. Cut the seam off. Make sure it's not there anymore. Cut over here somewhere. Sew it back together so your seam moves away from here. You would lose part of this, but that's okay, and then you could just keep on going. But I'm going to, and I could do that, but I haven't sewn it, so I'm just going to repin it, is what I'm going to do. See, so I'm coming back around, and all this will do is make a longer piece on this side, and I'll still have plenty. I always make mine much longer than what it says I need. If I have enough fabric, miter your corner and go back to where you're going to begin. See there? So now I just have a longer piece here and a shorter piece there. And all you need is 2.5 inches to cross over each other. So 2.5 and 2.5 is 5. So you only need 5 inches. So I have plenty to play with, and I'm not cutting it off till I get done. Okay? I'll be back when I start sewing it on, show y'all how I do that. So here I am over here at the machine. You can see my sunflowers real close up. You can see how I have the binding clipped on. Real close up. And I'm going to start at the bottom. At the bottom. What needle do I use? I use a needle for wovens, not stretch. I'm using a universal 80-12. And as long as it works, that's what I'm going to use. Now here's the thing. How big a stitch, how big of a seam allowance, how big a seam allowance do I do? I think I started to tell you this in another video, but I don't think I put that video up. I'm going to start with moving my needle over 2 places. I'm using my 1D foot, which is kind of a walking foot. It's got the self feed on the top. This is my Bernhardt 570, but you can use any sewing machine in the whole wide world. that has a straight stitch. Okay, you don't have to have any fancy machine. So what I do, number one, is I start over here on this side because that's the ending side. You don't want to start on the side you're going to end on. I sew, I make it a basting stitch. I'm going to put it way up on 4.4. And I'm going to sew for an inch or two. I've already got black thread in here because I did it, I bound a quilt the other day. Alright, now I'm going to lift this out of here. Get my scissors. I have scissors hanging on the side of every machine. Make sure your quilt has something to rest on. You have a big table, move a little table over here next to you, move a chair over here next to you. Mine folds under and rests on the table, so that's good enough for me. So here's my first stitch. Right here. Black on black, I know you can't see it. But what I want to do is fold this over and over again to make sure, here we got white on the back, to make sure that this flap covers up. There's my stitching. See my black stitches right there? We want to make sure that when I fold this over to finish the quilt later, that when I sew right here in the ditch, I'm going to be sewing in this ditch, I want to make sure that it's going to be past the stitching in the back. And it is. There's plenty of room past that stitching for this. Now usually I will go ahead and I'll make it a little bit fatter if I have quite a bit of room. Just play with it for a minute, look and see. So instead of moving my needle over 2 places to the right, I'm just going to move it over 1 place. And then I'm going to try again, but the first thing I have to do is rip that out. So you need a blade or some scissors or something. Remember, I took a great big stitch, so you want it to come out real easy. It's just going to pop off real easy. See? Super easy. Because I don't want that, I don't think. I might. But I'm going to try another one. Remember, I told you everything gets really fuzzy. Try not to fuzz it up, you know, as much as you can. Be careful with it because you're going to have to trim all that off at some point. At least a lot of it. Okay, so now we're going to do a sample again. This is sample number 2. Still on a basting stitch. And still with my needle moved over 1 position. I can move it over, goodness, 5, 6, 7, 8 positions. And I do not have my single hole in here. If you have your single hole in here, you can't move your needle. But I have my zigzag plate on and I can move my needle. Alright, so now we're going to do it with the stitches 1 over. I'm going to take it out. Take it out. Now I'm going to do another test. I'm going to wrap it around, fold it over, and make sure it, yes, and it does. You want this to be as thin, you know, you want it to be as 1/4 inch or a little more than a 1/4 inch on the front, and I think this is probably an exact 1/4 right now. Then you want it to wrap around the back. Make sure it covers up, and with that black thread and this black, you can see it real good. See there? There's my seam. Folding it over to the back. Does it cover up that seam? Because what I'm going to do to finish this quilt is I am going to stitch in this ditch. But before I stitch in the ditch, there's something else I do. So I'll show you that. So this is how I determine what my 1/4 inch is going to be. Let me get one of those little measuring things and see if it's an actual 1/4 inch or more than a 1/4 inch or less than a 1/4 inch or what. Let's measure it. My husband says measure. I always say, is that the same as measure? That's Oklahoma for measure. I'm here now, but I didn't grow up here. I grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, and they say measure there. He grew up here on a farm, and he says measure. Okay, that is, it's just an exact 1/4 inch. That's how much it is. And remember, I cut my binding 2 1/2, not 2 1/4. If I cut it 2 1/4, I would not be able to wrap it around here. as far as I want to. Now, if you're going to hand stitch this to the back, totally different animal. Totally different. If you're going to hand stitch this on the back, it can just meet. And I would use a 2 1/4. If I was going to hand stitch this to the back, I would use 2 1/4 width when I cut my bindings. But these are fun quilts. They're little quilts. They're happy quilts. They're not going to anybody's contest. And that's the way I'm going to do it. All right? So you don't need to watch me sew this on. That's basically what I wanted to tell you. I will come back and I will get it off the basting stitch. So I'm just going to clear it. Now when you clear it, it's going to take your 1 away. So I'm going to move it over 1 again. So I have it on 2 1/2 now and over 1. And I'm just lining up the edge of the foot with the edge of the quilt and the binding. I'll come do this one miter for you. I wish I had mitered this. That would have been so cool. But I didn't have enough of the green to do it. I don't think I had enough gold either. Alright, now here's something you need to know. This is important. You need to, now I think Becky goes off here at an angle. Becky Thompson at Power Tools with Thread, I think she said this morning that she sews off at an angle. I don't. What I do is I measure over here, get your measurer, put it underneath the foot, lift the foot, if you can figure out how to lift the foot, and all these buttons are so goofy. Then line this up, push it until it touches the edge of your quilt. I'm putting it in and I'm touching the needle. Then I'm going to line this up with the edge of the quilt, okay? Touch the needle, line that up. That's how far it is. It looks like it's a little more than 1/4 of an inch, but that's too bad. That's what we're going to mark. And so now, for every corner we come to the other side and we mark how far in that is that we just measured. And you got to have a pin. You got to have something to mark it with, and the best marker is a pin. Line that up like that, and then I put the pin in. Because I am going to stop sewing before I hit that pin. See, I've got the pin in there. I'm not sure if the camera can see. Let me move you a hair. See, I've got the pin in there, right there. So I'm going to sew, 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 sew. And right when I get to that pin, I'm going to back stitch. So instead of having 2 1/2 stitches, I am going to narrow. I am going to make the stitches closer together as I come to that pin. We shall see, Bumblebee. Alright, now I'm going to narrow the stitch way down. I've got it on 1.6. Why? Because I don't want to sew over the pin or past the pin, and I'm going to hand turn. Hand turn. Now that hand turn just landed before the pin. So now I'm going to back up and cut. Alright, so here's your first corner. Here's the corner of the quilt. Here is the binding I've sewn on the bottom of the quilt, and I've stopped right here at that pin. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to fold it down. I'm going to take, you may have to take some clips out to work with this. Hello, will you stay there please? Let me put that down, maybe it'll stay put. Go down. Alright, now stay there. I'm having a problem. Could you please come help me hold this? Okay, so we're going to take this and we're going to fold it away from. Which way are we going to fold it? We're going to fold it toward the edge we just sewed. Fold it away from that edge. Fold it up here on an angle. Okay? Now you've got your stitching stopped where I had that pin. Fold it on an angle. Then you're going to bring it back down just to this edge here. Okay? So I've got it lined up with this edge and I have folded it over there. Here's the fold. Let me see if I can show you the fold. Can you see the fold? The fold is right here. There's your fold. it lines up with that edge that you just sewed. Then it comes down getting ready for the next edge that you're going to sew. So I am going to sew this beginning right there at the top. Some people come in 1/4 inch. Some people sew that off at an angle. People do it all different ways. But this is how I do it, and it always works fine. But as I tell you, there's always at least 2 ways to do everything. So now we're going to turn it around. Is that 90 degrees? I think that's 90 degrees. We're going to turn it around, and we're going to start sewing right here where we have this ready to miter. Okay? And you might want to pin this so it stays up. As you're coming around, you're going to want to remove your clips as you go. See? So I'm actually going to put a clip up there on that corner to hold it. This right here should line up perfectly. If it doesn't, fiddle with it some more. That should line up perfect right underneath there. This should come all the way up to this edge. When you're doing it on camera, you know, it wants to be difficult. There. There, there. Sometimes I'll take it off and I'll go over to the table and make sure I have it exactly right. I lost my pen now. Let's use this. I told you every time you pick one of these up, it'll be upside down. Murphy's Law. Alrighty. So here we are. We're getting ready to go down the side now. So I'm going to go right back up here at the top. Get my thread out of the way. Get my quilt. I need something to hold my quilt here, but I'm going to stop in a second to go eat lunch. So, alrighty. There, I think we've got it. Make sure your quilt is going to move. Make sure you can move your quilt, or don't even do this. If your quilt is caught up on something, you'll know it. Now I've still got this way down on 1.6, so I'm going to put it back up on 2.5 because I don't want itty bitty teeny weeny stitches anymore. See, so here we go. We're off and running. Oh yeah. Moving so good. Yeah. And go all the way out to the edge. If there's batting out there, you go out to the edge of it. Because sometimes when you cut your quilt straight, after you get it off the long arm, you have to cut it past the batting. So don't trim the batting. Sew out to it. What is she talking about, George? I'm talking about right here on the edge, where the binding may be cut a zillionth of an inch past the actual quilt. Here you can see it, here you can't. And here's my seam. When I piece these two bindings together, that's where my seam ended up. And that's great, that's where I want it. Away from the corner. Okay? I'm fixing to come to another corner. I'll show you one more time. Cut these strings off as you go. Even with starch, starch does not prevent the fraying. So be gentle and try to keep it from fraying too much. Another thing you don't want to do is stretch. You don't want to stretch the quilt and you don't want to stretch the binding. Just flat and flat. No pulling, no stretching. Okay, now I need my little measurement so I can put my pin because I'm coming to the edge. Isn't this amazing how fast you can do a little quilt? Oh my gosh, I love it. I think it's my favorite part is that you can bind them so fast. Because binding is not my favorite part, especially on a big quilt. Alright, let's turn the stitches down. Way down, and let's come to this pin. And let's turn it by hand. We don't want to hit the pin. And there I am, right at the pin. And back up and cut. Quilts come off the long arm, not square. And they need to be squared up. Your corners need to be square. Your edges need to be straight. All right, I'm going to do one more corner for you. I think they're called Wonder Clips. Clover, they're wonderful. I think they come in several different sizes. All right, so I'm going to take off a clip up here that's holding my binding strip down. I'm going to put this foot down again. All right, so we take this and we fold it in half. And we make it go across the stitching we just stitched. Okay? It's not going to go this way. No, that's wrong. It's going to go backwards across what we just stitched. Here's my stitching line. This is the side of the quilt I just finished. And I'm going to fold it that way. Then I'm going to fold it back over my finger in a, whatever you call that, a 90-degree. So now, you want this folded, you want this piece here even with the edge. You want this side here even with the edge. You want these two pieces here to be on top of each other. That folds at an angle. Right inside there, it's folded like that at an angle. And so you want those two pieces exactly. Now I'm going to pin this back on. I'm going to lift my foot and turn. Yeah. When I'm doing a big quilt, I put a chair next to me and I hang the bulk of the quilt over the chair. Oh, it works great. Alright, so we're going to come down this side here. Do these ever turn out wrong? Yeah, sometimes. And get it off that little bitty. If you do have to rip it out, you don't want those skin tight, those super tight little tiny stitches in there. Alright, and here we are. We're going to come out to the batting. Am I lining it up with any lines? No. I'm lining up this edge of the quilt with this edge of my foot. And then we'll be back at the beginning. Oh, how awesome! And I can show you what you do to join the ends. Now this is a super important part. You can see this is very long. You don't need it that long. So I'm just going to cut some of it off. Make sure I still have enough extra, but I'm going to cut some of it off. I don't need that much hanging around. What you're going to do is you're going to cross this piece over this piece, and you're going to make sure there's 2.5 inches on each piece, because you have to have 2.5 inches to cross them over, like we did when we started. How come you can't see me? We have to have 2.5 inches and then sew from corner to corner. So you can't cut it off where you sewed. Don't do that. Don't do that. So take a piece, when you got all this extra, cut a piece. I just did, but it's on the floor. Cut a piece. Use this for your measurement, okay? So there's my 2.5 inches. I'm using that for my measurement. So I'm going to take this, and here I've got this blank space, and I'm going to try to line it up someplace here in the middle. So I'm going to take this, and I'm going to, let me see, I'm going to cut it off over here, because you want one on top of the other. You know, you've got way more than enough. I'm always super nervous, nilly, cutting this off. And then you're going to put this on top of it, okay? So you want one end on top of the other end. So we can take this one now, and I'm going to cut part of it off too. This isn't the correct cut. I'm leaving extra. That's not the 2.5 inches. That's just to allow me to cross these over. All right? So we've got that one. I'm going to move it up just a hair. And we've got this one on top of each other. So I'm going to get my chalky thing. And I'm going to measure 2.5 inches. Probably confusing, but it's not when you do it. Oh, why did that make 2 lines instead of 1? These chalks. Okay, so there's my 2.5 inches. I don't know why that made 2 marks, but it did. So I'm going to cut this one here, and I'm going to cut this one there. Does that make sense? This one didn't get marked very good. Can you tell? So what's going to happen is they're going to cross over each other like that. Very good. So I'm going to cut this one here. You want to make sure you don't screw this up, or you'll be attaching more binding. All right? So this isn't 2 inches from here to here. No, we're crossing over in this open space, and we're making sure that the 2 pieces cross over each other 2.5 inches, okay? We're not cutting back to where it's sewn. No, don't do that. Now see here, 2.5 inches. And so I'm going to cut this one on the mark I made here. I fold it so it's kind of real flat. And you want to cut it really, don't cut it any too long. If anything, cut it a zillionth of an inch too short. Okay. Now, hopefully that shows. There's my space in the middle. Here's this side, and here's this side, and they cross over each other 2.5 inches. I hope that makes sense. Now, what do I need this space in the middle for? I have got to sew this to this, and they can't reach. So what you do is you leave this space in the middle so you can make your quilt littler. Make your quilt smaller there. This is all very fiddly. Put that together, pin it or clip it. Let's clip it. Clip it like that. See, so now I've made this shorter. So now these 2 can reach each other better. See? Now, like I said, this will be the first time in history if I get this right the first time. But you know, there's always that chance. There's always a chance you can get something right the first time. So I'm going to take the one on the right, I'm going to open it up, and I'm going to turn it downwards. I'm going to take the one on the left. I'm going to open it up, pull it forward, pull it up, and then turn it to meet the one on the bottom. Now, don't ever in your whole life go sew this together yet. Pin it together like you're going to go sew it. On the diagonal, like I showed you at the ironing board, same exact thing. On the diagonal. Then fold it, open it up. First time in history is a mystery, but I did it right the first time. Awesome! So now I'm going to take this over to the sewing machine. I will line this up perfect. It won't be, you know, just a little bit together. It'll be sewn together exactly right. And then I will finish sewing that binding on. So here's where I added the 2 strips together. There's my diagonal seam right there. So before I do what I want to show you at the ironing board, I better go and sew this down. I'll be back. You may have a bunch of strings, you may just have a few strings. But before you want to wrap this around and quilt it, look at all these string things. You want to trim those off. So get yourself a nice pair of shears. Don't use manicure scissors or something that doesn't cut really good. I've got 100 pair of scissors. Oh, I've got all different brands, so it doesn't matter what brand. Just get, I think these came from Joann's in a package deal at Christmas or something. And of course you know why I bought them, because they're turquoise. Alright, so trim that off. Okay, lint roller. Roll all that up. Look at that. Yeah, you don't want that there because it will take up room when you're wrapping your binding around. Now, what I'm about to show you Here's the way I do it. I don't know that I know anybody else that does it this way. But even on a big quilt, I do it this way. Unless, and maybe on the kitty quilt, I'm going to hand bind it on the back. I think that'd be nice to do in the RV while we're traveling. You know, give me a project to work on. So I might hand bind it. But if I'm going to sew it, like I've been showing you, little scissors for little places, big scissors for big places. If I'm going to sew it, then this is how I do it. I use steam a seam. Steam a seam 2 light. This is a 1/2 inch. It's too wide. I'm not using a 1/2 inch. So I'll use what I've got left here of the 1/4 inch, and I have miles of this stuff, so I use it so much. Turn the quilt over to the back. To the back. If you see any more chopping that needs to be done, do it. If I see something wrong, I fix it. What was that? In that movie, Dirty Dancing, that father, which I thought was horrible at the part. What did he say? If I make a mistake, I say it. He didn't say if I make a mistake, I apologize for it. If I make a mistake, I say it, or some goofy thing. I did not like that dad in that movie. I didn't like most of the things in that movie. I thought the worst line in the entire movie was, "Nobody puts baby in a corner." Like somebody kidnapped her and tied her hands behind her back and shoved her down in that chair and told her she couldn't sit anywhere else. I was just like, that's the dumbest line. And Patrick Swayze thought it was a dumb line too. So I'm ironing it down to the very edge there. It's outside that black stitching line. Threads break, this steam a seam breaks. You just have to put on some music and be patient. It will be worth it all. Another song. Sometimes the tape doesn't have any sticky stuff behind it, and that's what just happened. Why? I don't know. Iron down your steam a seam, wrap it around your corners, because we're going to do one side at a time, but you need your corners done for your for your miters. Now here I've got more thread that needs to be cut off. Here we go. 1/4 inch inside. I have about 10 boxes of this. I probably should order 10 more. It irons down to the edge of this quilt, and it will iron down to the binding when I flip the binding around. One side is paper and one side is glue. Okay? And sometimes it doesn't start right away. It starts right here. So be sure you've got glue on the part you're using. When you iron it down later, you're going to iron it down with steam. Remember, it's called steam a seam. So this has to be steamed to become semi-permanent. It'll still come off if it gets really hot. But if you don't ever touch it, it will stay on forever. Now don't put tape on top of tape. Stop it when it butts up to the last piece you put there. Don't cross tape over tape, or you'll have tape stuck to tape and it won't be good. Alright, so now I've trimmed it and I've got the steam a seam tape all the way around. I have not ironed my flap over yet. But you want to iron your flap over to make sure that it's going to wrap around nice and smooth. Alright, so now I'm going to use my steam and I'm going to push it and I'm steaming it. Push it and steam it. Push it and steam it. Push it and steam it. Push, 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 push. Push your corners straight out. Push your corners straight out. Alright. Okay. Push. I just have the steam on. Push. 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 Actually, do you see my hand? I'm pulling with my hand and pushing with the iron. Push, push, pull and push. It's a pull and push thing. Okay, so I don't really know what I do until I stand here and I do it. So tell us how you put on bindings. Well, I'll have to do one because I don't really know. Pull and push. Pull. Now I'm pushing the steam button. Iron the corners out, straight out. You'll fix the corners from the back. All right, push, pull, push. Pull with your hand, push with the iron. Pull with your hand. Push. This is how I do it. Other people may say, oh, don't pull it and don't push it. You'll stretch it, you'll ruin it. You decide. You decide. So you see now how the black is all ironed. And now on the back, you can see the binding coming around to the back. And now I'm going to fold it over. See? Fold over. Fold over. And we're going to end up with a 1/4 inch binding. So, start somewhere, doesn't matter where, and pull your tape off. And I'm going to tell you another important thing. Stay with me because I have something important to tell you. Make sure the sticky stuff stays on the quilt and not on the tape. Some places it feels like the sticky stuff is still on the tape. Alright, so now the sticky stuff is there. Alright? I want to show you how to do the corners and what you have to pay attention to. If you see any more strings that seem to be too much, cut them, throw them on the floor. Keep a vacuum in your sewing room at all times, like I do. Oh. All right, string. So now I'm going to pull, wrap it around, and I'm going to iron it to the back. I'm going to, after I get this all wrapped around and ironed down, I'm going to go stitch in the ditch from the front. But I can just stitch that as fast as my little hands can go, and as fast as the sewing machine will sew, because I don't have to worry about it covering that stitching in the back. Because I've already steam, steam, steam. See? Let me show you up close. See here the black stitching line? And see how the binding covers it up. The binding has to cover that stitching line because I'm going to be stitching on that stitching line from this side. See? Alright, I'm going to get to the corner here in a second and I'm going to show you. I like doing it this way the best. I like folding it toward me instead of away from me because I can take this hand and turn. Yeah, it works real good. Yeah, the thing is, make sure the stitching line's covered up. Alright, I'm going to put it real close and show you how I do the corner. Alright, I'm peeling the sticky stuff paper off for about 1 foot because I'm fixing to do these 2 corners. Now let me show you if I can up close. Notice on the front that the seam, it's not a seam, it's a crease. It's where I made the angle. The angle, it goes either to the left or the right. This angle goes that way. The opening, I can stick my finger in here. When I do the back of the corners, I want to make sure that the opening is the other direction. All right? So, I would have to fold it this way and this way. I'll do it better over there. See, there's my miter on the back, and my finger goes in this way on this one, and it goes in this way on this one. They have to go opposite of each other to lay the best. Okay? I hope that makes sense and my fingers didn't clog it completely up. You have to either fold this first or this first. So you have to look at the other side of the corner to see what you're going to fold first. And in this case, I'm folding this side first. Alright? I'll show you again in a second when I get it ironed. See, so I've got this goes this way and that goes that way. So they're opposite of each other. And look at the beauty. Is that a pretty miter or what? I know. I'll be back to show you how I'm stitching the ditch. Here's the back. I haven't sewn a stitch yet. It's just steam a seam. And here's the front. It looks all done, doesn't it? So now I know before I sew it what it's going to look like. Oh, and it just looks super cute in my opinion. So well, I will show you this because there's different ways you can do it. And the way some ladies do it, I would never do it that way. So let me hook you up to my sewing machine again. All right, now, if you hear a crash, call 911. I have got tripod feet on my feet and on my chair. I'm going to put these gloves on so I can hold on to everything better. I always get the gloves on wrong the first time, so let's see how it goes. Does your thumb go in? Yeah, oh, I think I got it on right this time. So there's my gloves. It's got little grippies on the bottom. Okay, works best for quilting, the top of the quilt, if you do that on your machine, but that's not what I'm doing. You have to get your fingers in the right slots, or you're like little kids, which are so cute when they put gloves on. First tip, this is a joy tip. This is super, super important to me. Take this foot off. Don't use this foot. What foot is it? Doesn't matter. Whatever foot you use, if you don't have an opening in it where you can see your needle go up and down, don't use that foot. This foot, see this foot, how it has the little guide in it that you're supposed to guide up that seam allowance to do stitch in the ditch? Don't use it either. Use it if you want to. Use it if it works. But I can't get that to work for me. Here's the foot I use. I use the foot that's called the open toe foot because I can see in here. And that's the foot that I use because I want to see the needle go up and down, and I want to see it go directly in the road or the crack. It's really a crack. So, it doesn't matter where you start for this. Make sure you got thread. So I am going to roll the needle down right into that ditch, right into the ditch. Now I'm floating off the side here. I'm going to go get a chair to help me hold this quilt up. Show you how I rolled the chair, and I've got that quilt resting on the back of it. So that's going to hold it up and keep it from hanging over the side of the table. All right, now I hope I don't block this with my hands. I can't see the viewfinder because I'm in between the legs of the tripod, and it's just very, I'm only going to show you for a little bit because I can't really hold on to it well. I'm not sure I can even do it this way. Make sure you're in the center. Clear everything. You don't want to be off one, off two. You want to be in the middle. All right? So I'm going to go backwards one stitch. Oh wait, it's mad at me. When you have these fancy new machines, it's a royal pain, and I wish they'd do away with it. When you put on a new foot, you have to tell the machine that you put on a new foot. So I've got on, what's your number? A 20C. So I have to come over here and find 20C and tell it that I have 20C on, or it won't let me sew. I just think that's ridiculous. But one thing after another. Now let's back up. One stitch, lock it. I have it on 2.5. Now, I'm watching, my eyes are right here. My eyeballs are right here. And I'm not looking at the needle go up and down as much as I'm looking forward to the road that I'm fixing to put that needle in. I'm going to come right up here, and I'm going to eyeball it right here as I go. And for some reason, I can do that really, really easily. If I have that thing with the bar in it, it just, sometimes it hits it and sometimes it doesn't. And I'm way off to the side, so I don't know if I can do it with the camera on. See? Got my hands real close right here. And I got my eyeballs, my face. My face is almost down here. I mean, I am watching this thing. Put on enough glasses, put on some reading glasses. See there? What color am I using? I'm using black because the back of this is black, and I want it to be black on the back where I sew it. And on the front, it isn't going to show. All right, so that's the one thing I wanted to show you. I'm going to sew all the way around. When I come to the corners, I'll turn my, well, let's just go to the corner. Let me see if I can get to the corner. I'm on 2.5 now. Every once in a while I go backwards. That locks the stitch. So just say this quilt got caught in a tornado sometime or a bad windstorm and the stitches started to rip out. Well, when it gets to one of the places where I backspaced, it'll stop. Silly, I know, but see, I just backspaced again. So I'm getting ready to come up to this corner. What I'm going to do is turn my stitches down, way down, so I can get right to the corner. I am in the corner. Now I'm going to lift my foot with my knee here, which I can do with this Bernina. I'm going to make sure I'm in the corner, and I'm not. Oops. So I'm going to lift it with the wheel. It fell off the chair. I'll have to put it back on. And I'm going to put it down in the exact corner. I was a zillionth of an inch away from the corner. So I put it there with the wheel. Now I'm going to go forward, and back. Now that's just how I do it. I don't know that that is anybody's way but mine. If somebody else said, well, I've been doing that and I've been teaching it, well, I never saw your video, okay? So this is the way I made up, and this is the way I do it. Not to say that 10,000 people don't already do it, I just don't know who they are, okay? And probably there's some people who would say, well, we would never do it like that. Oh, there's always those people. We would never do it like that. But that's all right, too. So here I go. Now I got off just a little bit there. So what I'm going to do is cut my thread, and I'm not going to cut it, I'm going to pull it out. Because I'm sideways. If I wasn't sideways trying to show this to you, then I wouldn't have made that boo-boo. Coming back in, so say you did make a boo-boo. I'm going to rip that out. Coming back in, go 1 stitch forward, 1 stitch back, then start again. Stay near the black binding. All right? Okay, I need to get turned around right so I can finish doing this. But that's how I, Joy Bernhardt, do a binding. So I hope I've answered your question on how I do a binding. Now, nobody asked me how I get a little quilt up here on the ceiling, but I did it all by my very own self. I'll tell you what, it takes determination and don't give up. Oh my goodness, you have to have a really good ladder. And I bought myself 2 really good ladders for up here. I have a white one in there and a black one in here. But see, it has this tray on it, and it holds my pliers, holds my hammer, holds my ruler. I had masking tape in 3 different colors all over the place. I had it taped all over the quilt, I had it taped up here, I had it taped on the ladder, and the more I put up, the more the crazy thing didn't hold and fell down. So I finally went and got some sewing needles, used sewing needles, and I just put them in anywhere. And then I got my ruler, and see how I taped my ruler? So I found out that my ruler was this far off the bottom. So I measured that, and then it was this far to the blue. Where is it there? Yeah, to the blue line from the roof, from the ceiling. See, you have to be safe. You have to be safe. Gonna let you go. Let me know what you think about how I do a binding. And I wanted to say, I thought, they're going to think that I think that nobody else stitches in the ditch. That's not what I meant by that statement. I know other people stitch in the ditch. I know a lot of people stitch in the ditch. But they use a different kind of pressure foot. All the ones I've seen use a pressure foot with that little guide in it. So that's what I meant by, I've never seen anybody do it that way. Okay? So, love y'all. Let me know what else you want me to show you. I'll try not to kill myself doing it. Bye for now.